Hi, today we're talking about two-step equation word problems. So we start with our bell work, solve this equation. This is a two-step equation, and our goal is to get x by itself. So we have to get rid of the number that is not attached to x. So this 3 is directly attached. That's an invisible multiplication sign right there. So we come over to this 4. This is a positive 4. The opposite of a positive 4 would be minus 4 on both sides of the equal sign. So now we have negative 3x equals 16 minus 4 is 12. Now notice how this sign right here, it's always attached to the number right after it. So it was 4 minus 3x, but now that there's nothing in front of it, we say the vocabulary negative 3x. And we have that invisible multiplication sign, so divide by negative 3 on both sides, and x equals negative 4. Okay? The next one, draw a picture or a diagram to represent this situation. Tanner went on a bike ride. He started in Fillmore, which has an elevation of 5,135. Then he rode to Holden, which has an elevation of 5,115. And he ended his bike ride at Scipio Summit, which has an elevation of 5,305. So our picture could literally just be something like this. He started here, he drove here, and then he drove up here. That could be our picture. If Romeo bought 2 dozen flowers for Juliet, 2 dozen, do you know how many that is? That's 24. 2 dozen flowers for Juliet, which equals 6 more than 3 times as many flowers as he bought last year. How many flowers did Romeo buy for Juliet last year? Well, now we have an equation we can solve. Subtract 6 on both sides gives us 18. Divide by 3 gives us 6. So last year he got her 6 flowers. Okay, that was our bell work. Our goal, I can write a two-step equation to represent a word problem. Then we go to page 24 in the notebook called two-step word problems. And it starts with general equation. You're going to write this down. Total equals the change times x plus the start. So the start, that's our initial value. That's another vocabulary word for it. Change is our rate of change. Now, we could put the total first or we could put the total last, like with the equal sign there. Either one is just fine. Okay, let's do some examples, these are examples from the notebook. Katie is saving money to buy a bike. She has $52. Well, that's not 52. She has $52. Let's see if there we go. And is going to save an additional $8 each week. The bike costs $164. Write and solve the equation. So here's my starting number plus my change times x. Now, you don't have to use x. We could have used B for bike or W for week or S for saved. It doesn't matter. And then that equals the total that we're trying to save for, which is 164. Then to solve, subtract 52 on both sides and then divide by 8 on both sides to get your answer. Okay, our next example. Alonzo has saved $42 and is earning $7 each week. There's a W for week. Yesterday, he spent $77 of his savings. Write an equation and solve for how many weeks had he been saving. Now, that one is phrased weird. It probably would have been better to say he spent all $77 of his savings. That might have been better. So here's our starting amount. And then here's our change times W. We could have used X, right? But I did W for weeks. And then our total. And to solve, it's just subtract 42 on both sides and then divide by 7. Okay, our next example, which is the last one on this page in our notebook. Tara sold t-shirts at a festival. She earned $4 for each t-shirt that she sold. So I'm going to write 4T. That's our change. The amount of money is changing every time she sells a t-shirt. And it could have been X, but that's fine. Her expenses were $25. So that means expenses is stuff we didn't get. Okay, so in this case, instead of plus our starting amount, it's minus our starting amount because our starting amount is money we lost, equals 71, because that's the total amount in the end that she got. Then you can add 25 to both sides of the equal sign and divide by 4 to get to your answer. Oh, extend your thinking. With your team, come up with a word problem that could be represented by this equation. There are a lot of correct word problems. I often like to think of money. That's why some of those right there, that's why all of those right there were about money. My plus would just be the amount of money I started with. I started with $13. My change would be how much money I'm earning. I started with $13. I'm earning $12 per, however often you want it to be, per day, per week, per month, per hour, whatever you want it to be. I earn 12 per job. I earn $12 each time I shovel a driveway of snow, whatever it is. My goal is to save up for a game that's $145. There you go. That is a word problem. How many driveways do I have to shovel until I've saved enough money? That could be a word problem that is represented by this situation. Okay, oh, another example. So I have $15, but I'm spending $3 every single day to buy some kind of drink. If I was able to go into debt, after how long would I have negative $21? That could be an example. I mean, it's a terrible example. Don't go into debt, but there you go. Okay, the next one is you worked with your team on the next page to write equations for word problems from the notebook. So this one, we're not going to go over here, but you can look on Canvas at all of the answers to that notebook page on page 25. Then if there was time, working on Alex and exit ticket. Solve this equation, there's nothing there. Okay, I gotta write an equation for that one. Okay, the next question. Write an equation to represent this situation. Jay had 7 Squishmallows. He earned 3 each week while doing chores. He now has 22 Squishmallows. How many weeks did this take? And then we can solve. Subtract 7 on both sides, divide by 3. Our last one, write a word problem that could be represented by this equation. I was in debt $5, but I'm earning $9 an hour at my job. After how long will it take me to get $103? Well, that's assuming that first I'm going to pay off my debt. And then after that, I'm going to be earning some money. And that's how we would solve that. So that was two-step equation word problems. You got this. Bye.